Imagine a moment where everything you fought for, your name, your work, your dignity, gets stripped away in front of a crowd. That's where Zohran Mamdani found himself. Not just a New York State Assemblyman, but a man carrying the weight of his family's grief. He was racing against time, and the world decided to push back. Hard. Zohran had been on the move for weeks. Meetings in Albany, a community forum in Chicago, a last-minute rally in Philadelphia. His suitcase was a mess, half unpacked, dragged from one city to the next. But today wasn't about politics. Today was about family. His uncle, Jamal, had passed away. Heart attack. Only 45. Zohran grew up with him, shared secrets with him, laughed with him. Missing the funeral in Atlanta wasn't an option. He landed at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport at 5:45 a.m., exhausted, wearing a plain black suit, his eyes heavy from no sleep. His flight to board was at 6:20, and he was cutting it close. He rushed through the terminal, coffee splashing in his hand, phone buzzing with texts from his sister. "Hurry, Zoe, we need you here." At the Delta counter, he handed over his boarding pass and ID. "Flight 142 to Atlanta, I need to check my bag." The agent, a guy in his 20s with a name tag reading Tyler, barely looked up. He typed, frowned, then gave Zohran a quick glance. Too quick, the kind that carries a judgment. "You're not in the system," Tyler said, leaning back like it wasn't his problem. Zoran's stomach dropped, but he kept his voice steady. "That's impossible. I checked in online last night." "Look again." He slid his phone over, showing the boarding pass barcode. Tyler sighed, tapped a few keys, then shrugged. "Your seat's been reassigned. You'll have to wait." Zohran's jaw tightened. "Reassigned? Why?" "I'm going to a funeral. I need to be on that flight." Tyler didn't answer, just waved over another agent, a woman with sharp eyes and a badge that read Karen. She glanced at Zohran, then at the screen. "He's flagged for extra screening," she said like he wasn't even there. "Extra screening?" Zohran's voice stayed calm, but his heart was racing. "I've flown this route a dozen times this year. I'm a state assemblyman. Here's my government ID." He held it out, but Karen barely looked. "Doesn't matter. It's protocol." Protocol. That word hit like a slap. Zohran stepped back, feeling the eyes of other passengers, some curious, some annoyed, burning into him. A woman whispered to her husband, "Isn't that Zohran Mamdani?" But it didn't matter. Not here. Tyler muttered something to Karen, and suddenly 2 TSA officers appeared, their boots heavy on the tile floor. "Sir, you need to come with us," one said, his hand resting on his radio. Zohran's chest tightened. "For what?" he asked, not moving. "I didn't do anything. I asked a question." The officer's eyes narrowed. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." And just like that, Zohran Mamdani, a man who'd stood up for thousands, who'd fought for justice in Albany's halls, was being treated like a problem. He stood still, hands at his sides, staring at a scuff on the floor. He wasn't going to give them the outburst they expected, not today. But inside, he was burning. His uncle's funeral was slipping away, and with it, a promise to his family. What would you do if you were standing in his shoes, watching your dignity get questioned for no reason? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear your stories. And if this hits home, don't forget to like and subscribe to catch the rest of Zohran's story. Zohran Mamdani stood in a cold, fluorescent-lit hallway just off the main terminal at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. The TSA officers had led him through a side door away from the crowd, like he was some kind of threat. His bag was unzipped on a metal table, papers spilling out. Notes from his last speech in Albany, a photo of his uncle Jamal tucked in the side pocket. The officers poked through it all, not saying a word. Zohran's black suit was wrinkled now, his tie slightly crooked from the pat-down. He stood with his arms crossed, staring at the wall, trying to keep the fire in his chest from spilling out. "Why am I here?" he asked, his voice low but sharp. One officer, a guy with a buzz cut and a badge that read Martinez, shrugged. "Random screening, sir. It's just procedure." Zohran's eyes narrowed. "Random? You pulled me after I asked about my seat. That's not random. That's targeted." Martinez didn't respond, just kept flipping through Zohran's bag, like it held some secret they'd never find. The clock on the wall ticked past 6:15 a.m. Zohran's flight to Atlanta was boarding now, and he wasn't on it. His sister's texts were piling up. "Zoe, where are you? The service starts at 10. His uncle's daughter, little Aisha, was waiting for him to speak at the funeral, to say something about the man who'd taught him how to ride a bike. Zohran's throat tightened. He wasn't just missing a flight. He was missing a moment that would never come back. He glanced at the other officer, a woman named Collins, who avoided his eyes. "Can someone at least tell me why my seat was changed?" he asked again. Collins muttered, "That's on the airline, not us." Zohran's patience was fraying, but he kept his voice steady. "Then get someone from Delta here. Now." The officers exchanged a look, like they weren't used to being challenged. Martinez stepped out, radio crackling, leaving Zohran alone with Collins in the mess of his belongings. The hallway felt smaller now, the air heavy with silence. Zohran thought about his uncle Jamal, how he'd always said, "Never let them make you feel small, Zoe. You're bigger than their mistakes." But right now, Zohran felt invisible. A state assemblyman, a man who'd stood up to powerful people in Albany, reduced to a problem because he dared to ask a question. He could hear the terminal outside, announcements, footsteps, the hum of people moving on with their lives. But in here, time had stopped. A few passengers had seen him being led away. One, an older man in a Braves cap, had whispered to his wife, "That's Zohran Mamdani." What did he do? Nothing, Zohran wanted to scream. He'd done nothing but exist in a place where someone decided he didn't belong. Have you ever been treated like you didn't matter? Like your voice wasn't worth hearing? Share your story in the comments. We're all listening. And if you're hooked on Zohran's fight, hit that subscribe button to stay with us. Back in the hallway, Zohran's phone buzzed again. It was his wife, Layla, texting from their home in Brooklyn. "You okay? Call me." He typed back, "Missed the flight. Need you here." He hit send and leaned against the wall, closing his eyes for a second. He wasn't just fighting for himself now. He was fighting for every person who'd ever been pulled aside, questioned, made to feel like they were less. And he wasn't about to let this go. The fluorescent lights in that cramped hallway at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport buzzed like they were mocking Zohran Mamdani. His bag was still open on the table, his uncle Jamal's photo now creased from being handled like it was nothing. Zohran stood there, arms at his sides, his black suit feeling heavier with every passing minute. The TSA officer, Collins, was still avoiding his eyes, scribbling something on a clipboard. Martinez hadn't come back. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the faint hum of the terminal outside. Zohran's phone lit up again. Another text from his sister. "Aisha keeps asking where you are. Zoe, please." His heart sank deeper. Aisha was only 8, too young to understand why her dad was gone, too young to know why her uncle wasn't there to hold her hand. Zohran had promised to speak at the funeral, to tell everyone how Jamal lit up every room with his laugh. Now he was stuck here, treated like a stranger in his own country. He took a slow breath and looked at Collins. "I've complied with everything. You've searched my aims, patted me down, checked my ID. What's next? Are you going to tell me why I'm really here?" His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it, the kind that comes when you have been tried too far. Collins finally met his gaze, but her answer was cold. "We're waiting on clearance. That's all you need to know." "Clearance," starting. Zohran almost laughed, but it caught in his throat. He'd spent years fighting for people's rights in Albany, standing up to systems that ignored the little guy. And now here he was caught in one of those same systems. He thought about his uncle's words again. Never let them make you small. But right now, that's exactly what they were doing. Making him feel like he didn't belong, like his voice didn't matter. The hallway door swung open and a Delta supervisor walked in, a middle-aged guy with a lanyard and a nervous smile. His badge read Greg. "Mr. Mamdani, I'm so sorry for the inconvenience," he started, but Zohran cut him off. "Inconvenience? I'm missing my uncle's funeral because your staff decided I'm a problem for asking about my seat. Explain that." Greg's smile faltered. "There was a mix-up with the system. Your seat was flagged for review, and flagged for what?" Zohran's voice rose just enough to make Greg flinch. "I showed my ID. I'm a state assemblyman. You didn't even look at it." Greg stammered. "It's just protocol, sir. We have to—" Zohran held up a hand. "Stop. Protocol doesn't mean treating people like they're nothing. I want to know who called security and why. Greg shifted his weight, glancing at Collins like she might bail him out. She didn't. The truth was hanging in the air, unspoken but heavy. Zohran had been singled out, and no one wanted to admit why. He could feel it, the same feeling he'd had as a kid when people looked at his name, his face, and decided he didn't fit their idea of American. Has this ever happened to you? Have you ever been made to feel like you didn't belong? Just for being you? Drop it in the comments. We're all in this together. And if you're feeling Zohran's fight, hit that subscribe button to keep up with his story. Zohran's phone buzzed again. It was Layla, his wife, calling this time. He stepped to the corner of the hallway, ignoring Greg's nervous hovering. "Layla," he said quietly, "I'm stuck. They won't let me go." Her voice came through, steady but worried. "I'm on my way, Zoe. Hold on." He nodded even though she couldn't see him. Layla was his rock, the one who always knew how to cut through the noise. He hung up knowing she'd be there soon, and when she was, things were going to change. Zohran Mamdani leaned against the cold wall of the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport hallway, his eyes fixed on the scuffed floor. His uncle Jamal's phone, now crumpled, lay on the table next to his unzipped bag. The Delta supervisor, Greg, stood awkwardly a few feet away, clutching his clipboard like it could shield him from the tension. The TSA officers, Martinez and Collins, were now whispering near the door, their radios crackling faintly. Zohran's flight to Atlanta was long gone, and with it, his chance to stand by his family at the funeral. His phone buzzed again, another text from his sister. "Aisha's crying, Zoe. She keeps asking why you're not here." Each word felt like a punch to his gut. He looked up at Greg, his voice steady but heavy with frustration. "You've had me here for almost an hour. You've searched my bag, my body, my ID. I'm a state assemblyman, and you're treating me like I'm nobody. Tell me who decided I was a problem." Greg shifted, his eyes darting to the officers. "It was a system error, Mr. Mamdani. These things happen." Zohran's jaw tightened. "No, systems don't flag people for asking questions. People do. I want a name." Before Greg could answer, the hallway door swung open. Layla Mamdani stepped in, her presence like a storm breaking the silence. She was in a dark coat, her hair pulled back, her eyes sharp with a mix of worry and fury. She didn't need to raise her voice. Her walk said enough. Zohran straightened up, relief washing over him. Layla didn't glance at the officers or Greg. She went straight to her husband, her hand resting on his arm. "You okay, Zoe?" she asked softly. He nodded, but his eyes told her everything. Anger, grief, exhaustion. Layla turned to Greg, her voice calm but cutting. "I'm Layla Mamdani, attorney and Zohran's wife. Why is my husband being held here?" Greg opened his mouth, but the words stumbled out. "Ma'am, it's just protocol, a random—" Layla cut him off. "Random? You don't pull a state assemblyman out of line for random. You ignored his credentials, detained him without cause, and made him miss a funeral. That's not random. That's a choice." Her words hung in the air, sharp and undeniable. Zohran watched her, his heart steadying. Layla had always been his anchor, the one who could turn chaos into clarity. He thought about the times they'd faced this kind of treatment together, store clerks who followed them, neighbors who questioned their place in Brooklyn. But this was different. This was public, humiliating, and it was happening while his family waited in Atlanta, grieving without him. The officers shifted uncomfortably. Martinez mumbled something into his radio, and Collins looked like she wanted to disappear. Greg tried again. "We're sorry, Mrs. Mamdani. We can offer a first-class seat on the next flight." Zohran shook his head. "This isn't about a seat. It's about respect. You don't get to treat people like this and think a free ticket fixes it." A few passengers outside the hallway had started to gather, phones out, recording. An older woman with a suitcase whispered to her friend, "That's Zohran Mamdani. They're messing with the wrong guy." Zohran caught her eye and gave a small nod. He wasn't alone anymore, not with Layla here, not with people watching. Have you ever had someone stand up for you when the world pushed you down? Or maybe you were the one who had to fight? Share your story in the comments. It means more than you know. And if you're rooting for Zohran and Layla, hit that subscribe button to see what happens next. Layla leaned closer to Zohran, her voice low. "We're not letting this go, Zoe. They don't get to do this to you or anyone else. Zohran nodded, his resolve hardening. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about every person who'd been dismissed, ignored, or made to feel small. And with Layla by his side, he was ready to make sure the world heard it. Zohran Mamdani stood in the sterile hallway at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, his uncle Jamal's crumpled photo on the table next to his unzipped bag. His black suit was wrinkled, his heart heavy with grief. The Delta supervisor, Greg, and TSA officers, Martinez and Collins, stood awkwardly, avoiding his gaze. Zohran's flight to Atlanta was gone, and with it, his chance to speak at Jamal's funeral. His phone buzzed with a text from his sister. "Aisha's asking for you, Zoe." His niece's tears cut deeper than anything. "Why am I here?" Zohran asked, his voice steady but sharp. Greg mumbled, "System error, sir." Zohran's jaw tightened. "No, someone chose to flag me." "Who?" Before Greg could answer, the door swung open. Layla Mamdani walked in, her dark coat sweeping behind her, eyes blazing. "Zoe, you okay?" she asked, her hand on his arm. He nodded, but his eyes said it all: anger, loss, exhaustion. Layla turned to Greg. "Why is my husband detained? He's a state assemblyman, and you ignored his ID." Greg stammered, "It's protocol." Layla cut him off. "Protocol doesn't mean humiliating someone for no reason. He missed a funeral because of you." Zohran added, "I just asked about my seat. That's all." Outside, passengers were recording, a woman in a cross necklace whispering, "That's Zohran Mamdani. This ain't right. Have you ever been treated like you didn't belong?" Share your story in the comments. And if you're with Zohran, hit that subscribe button to see what's next. The hallway at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport crackled with tension. Zohran Mamdani stood beside Layla, his eyes locked on the Delta Gate agent, Tyler, who'd just been called in. Tyler's face was pale, his name tag glinting as he avoided Zohran's gaze. Layla's voice was sharp. "You flagged my husband. You called security. We—" Tyler mumbled. He seemed difficult. Zohran's voice cut through. "Difficult? I asked why my seat was changed. You didn't even look at my ID." Layla stepped closer. "Because of you, he missed his uncle's funeral. A little girl's waiting for him in Atlanta, and you took that from her." Tyler flinched, speechless. Greg, the supervisor, tried to intervene. "We'll get you on the next flight. First class." Zohran shook his head. "This isn't about a seat. It's about respect." Outside, the crowd was loud now, phones out, a man in a Falcons jersey posting online. "They detained Zohran Mamdani for nothing." The story was going viral. Zohran picked up Jamal's photo, smoothing it out. He thought of Aisha, waiting for him. "You don't get to treat people like this," he said, his voice steady but fierce. "Not me, not anyone." The room went silent, Greg and Tyler frozen. Layla squeezed his hand. "We're not done here, Zoe. Ever been judged for just existing? Drop your story in the comments. We're listening. And if you're rooting for Zohran and Layla, subscribe to catch the end." Zohran Mamdani and Layla walked out of the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport hallway, leaving Greg, Tyler, and the TSA officers in stunned silence. The crowd outside parted, some clapping, others filming. Zohran's phone buzzed with texts. "Zoe, you're on the news." Videos of his calm defiance and Layla's fierce words were going viral, sparking anger online as people shared their own stories of being dismissed, judged, made to feel small. In a quiet Atlanta hotel room that evening, Zohran sat on the bed, holding his uncle Jamal's crumpled photo. He'd missed the funeral. His sister sent a picture of Aisha, his niece, clutching a flower at the service, her eyes red. Zohran's heart ached. Layla sat beside him, her hand on his. "You fought for more than yourself today, Zoe," she said softly. "You honored Jamal." He nodded, whispering, "I just wanted to say goodbye." That night, Zohran wrote a letter, later published in the New York Times. "This isn't about one airport. It's about treating people with dignity, no matter who they are." The words hit hard, quoted everywhere. Delta's apology came too late. People from Brooklyn to Miami shared stories of being overlooked. Zohran wasn't just a politician now. He was a voice for the silenced. What would you do if you were Zohran, fighting for your dignity? Share your story in the comments. If this moved you, subscribe for more stories that matter. Outside the hotel, Zohran looked at the Atlanta skyline, thinking of Aisha, Jamal, and everyone who'd been told they didn't belong. Layla squeezed his hand. This isn't over, Zoe. He nodded. Some fights aren't just for you. They're for everyone waiting for someone to stand up.